Hi everyone, and welcome to Noona's Noonchi, where I do a deep dive into some of your favorite K-dramas from a mental health perspective. Vincenzo finale. HAN-cenzo. Let's put it this way. Spoiler alert galore in this episode. I waited as long as I could to talk about the Vincenzo finale, but now I gotta really talk about the Han, y'all. Han in Jang Han Seo. That is the younger brother of the villain, the other CEO basically. And yeah, he dies. Spoiler alert. There are a couple poignant scenes that really display his Han so beautifully. He has a sad story. He knows that his older brother, his older half-brother, the 2 p.m. guy, killed their dad. And dealing with that, but then having this exterior of I'm the CEO that's covering for your evilness. But then when he shifts, and we see that shift as he aligns with Vincenzo. Episode 18 is where we really see the Han in Jang Han Seo. It's really poignant, really. And this is what I want to say. Han can be so sad. Based on a sad history of your life, trauma in your life, and all the stories I've so far outlined to you, there is sadness and there is that trauma there. For him, he just wanted, I believe, to have a brother that he could love and count on. Does that make sense? And that is why he followed his evil brother. I believe that to some degree, right? Doing what he did also out of fear, but also because it was his brother and he wanted that kinship. He found that kinship in Vincenzo. And in episode 18, Vincenzo asks him, why are you aligning with me? Basically, you could be CEO and it would be easy for you and you don't have to go through all this to bring your brother down. Basically, they were trying to figure out a way to bring Babel and the villain down. And the brother says this. He's like, it's strange. You say mean things to me. You're not very nice, but the feeling I have with you is comfortable, safe. I feel like you're my brother, Hyung, or you're a brother to me, Hyung, because I guess Vincenzo's older. That to me, I felt it here. Meaning, Jang Han Seo, the sadness he feels, experiences that in that moment he expressed the regret of not having a true brother that he could love, that he could look up to, and that would take care of him. Now, Vincenzo didn't really necessarily take care of him, but he still felt that kinship. And you see Vincenzo, great job, Song Joong-gi, okay, I get it, I understand. I appreciated that sharing. And then he asked him, this is a funny moment, can I call you Hyung? He's like, no. But he changes his mind and says, I guess so, because he realizes he was serious. Jang Han Seo was serious, and he calls him Pin Hyung. Vincenzo, Pin Hyung. I thought that was hilarious. But my whole point is this. That Han broke my heart. The sadness, regret that he experiences of not having somebody in his life. He has no parents, right? We really don't know what happened with the mothers, I believe, but their father, killed by his older brother. And then he's having to live this life alone. But what he chooses to do is for good. And he makes that choice. So folks, you can make a choice. His life has been traumatic. And in episode 16, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, he does get killed by his brother, putting actually the gun on him to save the rest of the crew, specifically Vincenzo, knowing I'm gonna die for him, but it really wasn't about him. It was about himself. In that moment, he was like, I have a choice to do good. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the right thing. This is what feels right to me. I believe in something. And at the end, as he's dying, he said, I did good, right? And Vincenzo's like, yeah, you are my brother. Now, I didn't really like that comment too much. Like, yeah, you died for me. Now you're my brother. I don't think you don't have to take it that way literally. But again, this is my interpretation. Jang Han Seo dies peacefully in pain, being shot to death by his brother, because he does good for what he believes in. Does that make sense? He finds value in himself, perhaps for the first time in his death. Han can work that way. That is sad. That is why probably you guys were in tears. I mean, I wasn't bawling, but definitely it was a sad scene. I didn't know that they were going to kill him off. Spoiler alert, but it felt right. Does that make sense? It's not like you want to see someone die, But the Han reconciliation, the sad story he lived of having a facade, of being the CEO, covering up for his brother, looking up to him for a bit, trying to find that kinship and love in a family, the familial tie that he did not have, found it in Vincenzo, believed in what Vincenzo was doing, believed that Babel had to be brought down and aligned with him to the very end. And that's where I want to say the reconciliation happened. It had to happen in his death. It didn't have to. They could have done it different ways, but it felt good. And there was that shift in his character. So I want to say this. Han can look very multidimensional, multifaceted. There's lots of layers to it. And as we're peeling away the onions from Jang Han Seo, you see him from the get-go one way and completely shift another way, and you grow to really like him and like the fact that actually he's changing, being influenced by a mafia consigliere. Yeah, it's a K-drama. It's not that. It's not so much he's a mafia K-drama consigliere, but it's the fact that Jang Han Seo finds the relationship of a brother that he always longed for. And his Han journey is shifting. And then that's where he decides he's doing good. He's going to keep going for it at the very end, where death doesn't really matter. And in that last scene, I knew it. You know how you could predict that he was supposed to hit and beat Vincenzo up, but instead he goes after his older brother? You almost saw that coming. Why? Because you felt the shift in his character aligned to Vincenzo, that he really cared and loved him and respected him and was going to do good at the end. That's my point, folks. How much your identity can shift, how much behavior, emotions can change based on relationships, experiences, and he allowed that to happen, but he also made the choice to do that. And he chose over getting that CEO position and living a ruthless life, probably an unhappy life to him, to doing what's right. And the death did not matter. So I'm not saying you have to die to reconcile Han, but how are you reconciling those bitter feelings, the self-conflict, the justness versus injustice? How are you reconciling that? That's the question I'm asking for you today. How are you working through that? It's an ongoing process, an ever-evolving process. You don't just reach a moment where you're like, I've completed this and this is where I'm at. Jang Han Seo happened to reconcile it in his death. But even if he hadn't died, he was doing what's right. And he wanted to do what he believed in. And that kinship he felt changed him. A relationship can change you. So my point in today's takeaway is perhaps thinking about the relationships around you that are making you feel unjust or more bitter, or really kind of nagging into those feelings that are not good, negative, toxic. You do need to cut those out of your life. What are they? Who are they? It does need to be done. Don't let the Han cover that, being like, well, this is how it has to be. It does not have to be one way, ever. You can change. You can make choices. And even if those choices are difficult, I never said choices were easy. Change is very difficult. The first response to change is resistance. But once you get past that, the rewards can be great. And look at Jang Han Seo and his death. Sorry, spoiler alert, but I was really touched by that. There's his Han reconciliation laid out before you, influenced by a mafia consigliere, but more because he found the kinship in a brother he never had. You can do that too. Thanks for joining me. This was Noona's Noonchi Deep Dive. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so you can get notified of more videos to come.